No problem. All right, I'd like to call our meeting to order, if I can. This is the August 16 Metro Management Council meeting. We do have a quorum. We have 4 of our members here. Commissioner Benninga will not be with us today, so we have 4 of our 5 members here. We need to get a motion and a second to approve our agenda in front of us, please.
Move approval.
Second call.
All right, motion by Karski and seconded by Cole to approve our agenda. Any discussion there? All right, let's vote on that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, agenda's approved. Anyone here for public input? So great. You guys, we never have public input here. I love it. Approval of minutes dated April 26.
I so move.
Those were sent. We need a motion to approve. Got it by Councilor Sale, seconded by Cole. Any discussion there? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those are approved. We'll move right in then to our interim director, Mike Gramlich. Mike, welcome. Your report, sir. The floor is yours.
Good to see you guys again. Try to keep it brief, just give you some updates on things that we've reported on previously. I think it's helpful. Just a refresh of the way that I've been presenting. Can report conditions, actions, and needs. We're back to operational readiness. We have transitioned a good chunk of our IT services to the city. We've implemented 2-factor authentication. Our admin staff have access to city resources at this point, and we plan a full operational swap over at the PSC transition. So really pleased with how that's going. We have a final draft of our COOP, thanks to Sandy France at the city. Honestly, I think she could have moved much faster if I could have run alongside her, because I just haven't been able to keep up. I'm pleased with where we're at there. It gives us an idea of how we manage that continuity of operations throughout, and we'll be working to get that implemented fully here shortly. Lastly, that support for transition to the new PSC. We've been fortunate enough to have help from both sides, of the equation here, and also Erin Bovenkamp as a project manager for the city. She's been heavily involved in helping us with build planning for the actual transition. How do we actually turn the one switch off and the other switch on? So I'm very excited about the way that's going. We'll hear a little more about it later. Our needs just continue to be that access and support from the services. Staffing was our other condition. We're still evaluating processes. As you'd imagine, we're making changes on the fly. Our PAT program, we've talked about that extensively. We even had a special meeting for it. I'll give you a good update on that later. We're up and running. And again, that's that same continued access. So that's pretty straightforward there. I wanted to revisit a couple of KPIs that were reported to you because we can have some updates on them. We're all pretty aware of these statistics. This is the 24% retention rate that we had as an average from 2004. Then a vision, or at least a glimpse into how we're managing and getting applicants. Historically, over the last 5 years, we've processed around 400 applications per year. And then as a percent of staffing available, ready to go for our minimums, we were sitting at 70%. Now I'd like to present. So from January 23 to date, we're actually seeing an 80% retention rate. That's a pretty eye-popping statistic, but we got to keep it in perspective, right? So far, we're a few months in. We've staved off some of the losses that we're at least accustomed to in the last few years, but I'm still always going to be cautious about partying too fast. So pleased to see that we seem to have staved off some of that. Our losses have mostly come from recruits, which is something that we'll probably continue to have in the future, but our goal is to make those hires and those trainings as effective and frankly keep those employees as long as possible. Applicants process, just so you can see, we still continue to get applications and we're processing them from the administrative side effectively. We're at 304 year to date. And then that availability statistic, as we would have expected and as we predicted at the last meeting, it's going up. We're at 76% currently. If we can stay on our current retention path on our training program, have people successfully through the training programs, we should look to be over 90% by February. So we've got that going in the right direction. It's not a fast process. Obviously, when we have a 24 to 26 week lead time just to get people trained, it's going to take us time to get there. The big thing is if we can stop the bleeding and not lose people, we have a chance to get ahead and make some change. Additionally, I reported last time that we had in 2022 roughly 9,000 extra hours worked by the staff at Metro. Roughly that was about a month of additional work per employee on average across the organization. We all agreed that's not a sustainable model. The only way that happened was through the work of that team. Interestingly, I can report we're down a bit 7 months through the year. We're about 4,000 hours now. which roughly translates to 2 weeks. So we should see a little bit of a reduction in that. That would be reflected in the fact that we've moved from 70 to 76% availability. That minimum staffing is able to be met more often and we're not pulling people in. But what I really want to focus on there is that while we continue to have short staff scenarios, which will happen until we can get ahead of it, the thing that we've really changed is how we're trying to fill some of those hours. Historically, those hours just simply got put back onto the same men and women that were already working full-time hours on a weekly basis. So when I floated the PAT program here, and you'll have to forgive me, we love the nomenclature of the PAT program. We enjoy it immensely using it. What we're trying to do is just offset those hours. So we're still going to have those hours that need to be managed, but we're trying to put it onto people who haven't already worked 40, 50, or 60 hours that week. So the thing that I want to report, we went through the first phase. We have 3 folks that are predominantly trained and ready to go. We have another 19 that have raised their hand and should come into some form of training in the next couple weeks. But currently, by using one PAT that's ready to be out on the floor and is covering vacancies, we've already prevented 288 hours of required time. These are hours that would have had other employees forced to work. We're talking 7 weeks worth of work. One PAT has been able to replace that. So I'm very heartened. It's not a panacea. It's not going to fix everything, but I think it will ultimately be the thing that we're definitively doing differently than most other places. And I think it's a huge component into our success long term for maintaining that staffing capabilities. Any questions on that?
No questions, just I really appreciate the data-driven approach to the staffing side of things. And obviously, things are moving in the right direction. One quick question I guess I would have is on when you talk about extra hours worked and we had 9,000 extra hours in 2022, is that slide year to date also, or is that the entire year?
The 9,000 or the 4,000?
Well, 4,000 looked year to date, but is the 9,000 year to date?
No, the 9,000 was all
total?
of 2022.
Okay.
So that gave us as best to apples as we could. So far, typically we'll see those vacancies peak throughout our summer months. So there's a strong possibility we should see significantly less than 9,000. Not magical numbers, but we should start to slow down throughout the later part of the year. So it's conceivable we could see, let's say, 7,000 to 8,000, which would be a dramatic improvement already. Sure. But the goal is until we can get fully trained staff up and ready, we're just trying to distribute those hours a different way so that the same people they're not the well getting gone to over and over.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yep, for sure.
Mayor,
For sure.
curious, do you track how much overtime is voluntary and how much is forced?
We do. Yep. So I'm sorry I don't have that ready for you.
Okay.
Right now, so voluntary overtime, well, overtime as a whole, I can't prevent, right? We live in a minimum staffing, mandatory staffing model. What I have learned from my time at Fire, and certainly can corroborate with my time at Metro, it's the required time. It's the forced hours that have the biggest impact on eroding culture and morale. Mm-hmm. So that's really, we've done the same at Fire. We focus heavily on removing forced hire. I'm very simply taking my bag of tricks from Fire and moving over to Metro and trying to do the same thing. I know that that's impactful.
Can you guess?
I bet we could probably get a guess, but can we do it here? Or
Is it
should we
60,
just
40, 80, 20?
I don't want to over or undersell.
Yeah, no.
Get back to you though.
Okay.
Is it okay if we send it to you? I'd
Please.
rather get you good data. It's not rocket science. Many of it has to be forced hired. That's just how it works. People tap out, and then there are various number of rules that distributes how that happens. But really, at the end of the day, what we're trying to work on extensively is to just end that. If we have need, right? If we have minimum staffing needs, just like we have at Fire and at PD, we want people to raise their hand that can take it, have the family life to be able to manage that sort of thing. But long term, we really want to work on that forced hire, that required time that we have at Metro. I'm pretty heartened by a singular PAT knocking out 288 hours all by themselves. Mm-hmm. If we can replicate that even a couple times, that's a significant number of hours that we should be able to offset. Mm-hmm. It'll just take us time to get there.
Sure.
That makes sense?
Yeah. Other questions? All right. Keep going. Thanks, Mike.
Really, we're at next steps, so we'll be talking about the budget like we did in April. That's the next item on the agenda. And then really just touching that facility move. Right now, we are in the nitty gritty. So it is literally what switch will be turned here. How will we have people ready for that move? It's, as you would imagine, a large coordination effort. Truthfully, without Aaron Both in camp and the team that we have, it would have been Herculean. I don't know how we would have gotten there. So I'm very confident in that move that's coming. I'm pretty excited for it, as are all our team. But really, other than that, we've got everything going fairly well.
Is the flip switching date been set?
It has
yet?
not. So there's still quite a few things in flux without getting too far into the details. As we move forward, everything's kind of an if-then contingent. So we're trying to make sure we meet deadlines from vendors, let's say like radios, computers, that sort of thing. And as long as we can keep all those dates online, we're okay. To be clear, and I said this at our planning meeting, Metro does not have a deadline. We do not have to move to that building on a specific date. I would rather a functional operational facility be what drives our date, but we are trying to meet those deadlines so that we can kind of have that experience of the 28th is when we're opening. So
Sure.
we're working toward that. We should continue to know more in the next couple weeks. We have a few critical infrastructure pieces that have to finish installation. Once those are done, they give us a little more flexibility.
Yeah, I think just to note, I believe the 26th, is that a Saturday?
28th is.
28th is a Saturday. I think there's an open house and community open house at the campus that day. So put that on calendars and in the minutes as well. So details forthcoming. All right, other questions for Mike on any of that? Very good. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, we'll get back to the agenda. So the budget, I want to make sure that we address. So we did present budget, if you remember, in April, but we weren't quite certain how we wanted to handle that adoption. At this point, we're at a place where we feel it would need to be adopted by this body. I don't know what you want for a presentation, if you want me to re-go through it. In essence, what we presented with help of the city finance team was that there would be an 8% increase from both county and city. I can give you more if you'd like it. We can present even additional at a different time if you'd prefer, but we're at an order of operations where it's time for that to get adopted. I present on the 22nd for the joint, and I'd like to make sure that we've dotted our I's and crossed our T's. So I'm sorry for the confusion there, but it's difficult for us to manage this order of operations in the way that we've been functioning this year, so.
So the question is just how in detail we want you guys to go through the budget?
Because I went through it in April, if you remember, and then at the end of it, we debated whether or not we should take action on it. My recommendation is now we do need to take action on it, so I just need to know what you need from me for a refresh.
Is that this? Is
that,
pretty much this?
That's correct, yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't mind a real quick review of it, being that it was April.
Yep, no
Just-
worries at
just-
all. I
and-
have it queued up, I just didn't want to take time you didn't want me to take.
And I don't mean to speak for the rest of the council, but I think we can go straight to, like slide 6.
Right here?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, this would speak directly to it. So this is our difference in operations personnel, really what this will turn into, and I believe it's on the next slide. Is that right, Anna?
Yep.
That's gonna be the more laid out scenario. So that tells you exactly what our unfunded expenses are. That's the nitty gritty of it. City's responsibility is an 8% increase. Minnehaha County's is an 8% increase. It goes to that 0.8 and that 2.3.
And there's no additional FTEs being requested for next
That
year.
is correct, no.
Mike, could you maybe go to the next page, and
For sure.
that's, if any of the slides would be concerning, that would be the one right there.
This one I might need a refresh from Anna on. I understood how we were managing this. Would you mind helping me with that? Come on up here with me.
Sure. So what we did is you adopt the budget for the next calendar year, which is our fiscal year. But we always try to provide you with projections so that you know that we are planning ahead and we're understanding where we would likely land long-term. And so that's what this forecasting cash balance does for you. And I think, Kurt, you asked last time what the long-term, or maybe it was you, Dean, what the long-term projection was, and we used an 8%. And you can see that that 8% takes us fairly flat by the time we get to 2030, assuming we spend 100% of our budgeted expenditures and our revenue comes in where we're projecting.
So, I'm sorry, 8% annual increase in budget? Okay.
And then I think the second question last time was, what is needed for cash flow? And what Gramlich explained to you was that we try to hover around the 500,000 mark. That's a safe amount for us to cover payroll and just fluctuating monthly and quarterly expenses. And then if we ever needed any influx, we would go to the city, is who we've usually gone to in the past, and they just advance us a portion of our monthly support. And because at that point, it's just a cash flow.
So through 27, at least for the next 3 budget cycles, we're okay. And I mean, we just got to kind of keep our eye on that ball going into 28 and 29 and watch what's happening.
Yeah, and then we try to be, we try to project as close as we can with 911 surcharges. It's a big fluctuating item, and if we do better on that, then that relieves a lot of stress.
Do we usually, and maybe there's no usual, but do we usually undershoot or overshoot out those projections? Are we usually conservative on them, and do they come in higher, or?
We try to get really close on the surcharges because we don't want to overassess the city and the county, but we also don't want to fall short. A cash flow mid-year is one thing, but we don't want to have to come up with a huge influx from both in the following year. So we really do our best to compare it. The challenge with surcharges is we're presenting our budget in March usually, and then at that point, the information is quite old for a calendar year. So for example, this year we were projecting off 2022 revenues to project into 2024. But it's just the nature of how that works.
Are we usually pretty close on those projections?
Yeah, if you recall this last year, we started seeing an uptick in surcharge revenues, and that is holding true. When you get to financials, you're gonna see that we're doing well. We're a little over 2% growth, 2 to 3% growth from last year. And that fluctuates each month. Some providers pay every other month, so you'll kind of see a slight movement from month to month because of that. But surcharges have been doing well for us this year.
Okay.
If I may.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Sitting on the cash that you are right now, what type of instruments is that in? CDs, money market? Have you been analyzing, 5% on a lot of CDs these days? Are we doing better on that cash?
That's a really good question. Understand that the cash we're sitting on right now is relatively recent because the city advanced us the $2.15 million for the FF&E for the new PSC. And then the balance of it was a reimbursement from the 911 Coordination Board. And those bills are coming in, so it would be difficult to invest those into a CD because we need that cash flush and available for paying those bills in the next couple months. We do get a nice interest rate at the bank, and so I think you'd be surprised. Our interest for July was $13,000.
No.
So it's nothing to scoff at.
Okay,
So that you should feel a little better about that.
thank you.
Questions? Other questions on the budget? All right. Then we need a motion to adopt it as presented in April and re-presented here. Need a motion and a second, please.
Move approval.
Second call.
All right, motion by Karski, seconded by Cole. Is there discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, that passes 4-0. City of Sioux Falls Metro PSC lease agreement is our next item. Dave?
Good afternoon. Dave Fifely with the City Attorney's Office. Presenting here on a joint effort, Eric Bogue with the State's Attorney's Office and also as Metro Management's attorney. We did a joint effort in bringing you this lease proposal today. It's based off a template, the standard template with the city. What it provides is almost 14,000 square feet of space for the PSAP to operate at the new Public Safety Training Center. The move-in date is, as you have already heard, is a bit of a moving target right now, pardon the pun. The end date of this lease will be September 30 of 2024. And there's a couple reasons for that. First of all, and the main one is GASB has some new requirements on how local governments treat a lease under whether it counts as your debt, et cetera. And I know the local governments, in talking with county auditors and city finance officers, they're hoping to work out something with the Department of Legislative Audit and also perhaps the legislature to get some clarification on how a lease is treated under that. So that explains kind of the shorter term for it. In terms of other items within the lease itself, in addition to the 13,716 square feet, it would also allow Metro to use 4,857 square feet of common area. And the best news of all is that it would be for the outrageous sum of $1. So that's where we are at. So Eric and I can answer any questions that you may have.
All right. Thanks, sir. And both you and Eric have reviewed it and are both on board from city and county side on this?
This appears to be a city-driven initiative. Most of the legal work is done by the county for the Metro. Is it because it's city property, or what are we doing?
Well, Dean, with city property involved, and as you know, we are unfortunately losing Drew DeGroot, and so we were just trying to help move things along, and certainly we've been involving Eric and Drew throughout any process regarding your issues. Certainly in my prior tenure here, it was a kind of a joint effort where both our offices were assisting, and certainly we're all in this together. So, but yes, it was blessed by your attorney for the county and also on behalf of Metro.
All right. Thanks, Dave.
He had an active role in final.
We have reviewed it. By we, I say our county legal and et cetera.
Mr. Chair, members of council. Yeah, I have reviewed it. I got it Monday late afternoon, so had a very short review period. I did present back to Karen Leonard some of our comments, but it was unclear at that point who was driving the ship, so I just said, hey, my comments at this point are just that, comments. And to her credit, to Dave's credit, City Attorney's Office, they did accept all of those changes, most of which were formatting because I can't help myself. But there were a couple substantive changes. Again, they accepted all those. Ideally, I would have preferred to have more time to digest this. Did get it 4:30-ish Monday afternoon, so, and then Karen sent a revised version, which was just an address change on Tuesday. So that's the extent of my involvement.
Okay, thank you, Eric. And Drew definitely, sorry, Drew, will be missed. I know you're not fleeing a ship or anything that's going down, but you've been great for us on the legal side, so thank you.
Other discussion or questions on the lease agreement? All right, I need a motion to approve it then.
So move Cole.
Second.
All right, motion by Cole, seconded by Karski. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that's gonna pass 4-0 as well. And we'll move on to item 7, our audit engagement services with Ide Bailey.
Hello. So you approved a 3-year engagement with Ide Bailey for performing our audit services for calendar years 2021 through 2023, and you approved that in August of 21. And as is required by the South Dakota Department of Legislative Audit, you need to reaffirm that by approving them to actually complete the audit for 2023, and then it's our responsibility to forward that to Department of Legislative Audit before they can begin performing the audit. This year, you'll see that there's actually 2 additional items, and those are a consulting engagement for reporting requirements of GASB 87 and GASB 96 implementation, along with the 2023 lease query agreement. And this is going back to what Dave Fifely visited with you about. And we talked about this a little bit during audit. So there's some new requirements that have to do with leases and now also software. And it's fairly technical, and it's a good and wise move to have Eide Bailey perform that service for us. Last year they did that for us, and the total cost was a couple $1,000s. And for the amount of agreements we have and leases on the various equipment, it's well spent money. So our request is that you approve all three of those.
All right.
But I am gonna hand the floor over to Drew.
Drew DeGroat from the State's Attorney's Office. We would like you to take action on these. However, there is some pending legal review. We're having some language change with venue, indemnification language. So this would alleviate the need for a special meeting. I know how much you love those in between now and December, so we'd still ask for formal action, but for your approval. But we'd also like final legal review before the chair signs the agreements.
Sure. Sounds good. All right, any discussion on these three items to take action on? I think we can take these as one motion. Okay, if not, I would propose that we make a motion to accept all three of these actions pending legal review. And if there is substantial changes that would have to come back to us, that we trust the judgment of the office if that's the case. It's a long motion, but you yell that, Amy? Yeah.
Who's gonna complete the legal review? Okay. That would be my motion.
Second.
All right. That's motion by Karski and seconded by Sale. Any discussion there? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, that's gonna pass 4-0. All right, we will move on. Item 8 is the financial statements year-to-date ending July 31.
Thank you. So you have your financial statements. You have 3 pages. We always start with the balance sheet. Our cash is sitting very strong right now, as Commissioner Karski pointed out, and that's due to the advance of the $2.15 million for FF&E, which was agreed to between the city and the county back in 2020. So those funds have been transferred. In addition, we're continuing to monitor expenditures, and as soon as I have expenditures that are reimbursable through the 911 Coordination Board funding, we're submitting those and we're getting reimbursements for that too. So we're trying to monitor our cash flow very carefully. When we actually have several large bills now in August that we're gonna be paying, one that we already paid, that is reflective of additional equipment being delivered with the new PSC. So cash flow will drop substantially just in the month of August alone, which is as expected. So as far as the balance sheet, I really don't have any concerns. You're seeing some entries in there in cash and in construction in progress that reflects the receipt of these assets that aren't functional yet, and so they're not listed in capital outlay. They're actually listed as construction in progress, CIP.
Okay.
So if you don't have any additional questions there, I'll move to the current versus prior year summary. And I would have a similar theme here. First of all, you can see that, you can see approximately a 3% increase in 911 surcharges from year to date last year, and we talked about that earlier. But you also see the other revenue of $1.7 million, and that is in great part the contribution of revenues that we've received year to date. So no concerns about payroll. It's right where it should be, and when you think about where we were last year versus this year, it's reflective of staffing. And if you go down to supplies, you'll see some information there where, you know, we're starting to receive assets.
Okay.
Okay, if you go to current budget versus actual details, which is the 3rd page, Again, you're gonna see a recurring theme here. You can see the contributions of revenue in a significant amount. And then you can see that our surcharges are about 2% greater than we anticipated. And if you recall, when we budgeted 2023, we budgeted a 1% increase based on what we had seen in 2021 and earlier years. Whereas now for '24, we budgeted a larger increase. Again, we're doing well in personnel services. We did well with insurance, and we have some staffing vacancies that's leaving us some cash on the table there. And under operating, we're doing well there too, although you're starting to see some purchases that are flowing in through there for small equipment, monitors, things like that.
Is that overtime decrease, which is substantial due to some of the things that Mike talked about with the PAP?
Yeah, actually, if you look at that again, we're exceeding what a normal,
Oh,
prior-
excuse me.
yeah. So take a look at that again. And year to date, our overtime is quite high, but as was reported to you, we've been experiencing significant numbers of overtime. And, but that's offset by how low we are in salaries. Original year to date, we would have budgeted 2.2 million and we've spent 1.9 million. So the net offset is a very comfortable one for us right
Yeah,
now.
200.
And part of that is due to Pat and different things like that.
Mayor?
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Are we expecting some grants to come in on the revenue side? I see a kind of a goose egg right there, and we had something missing, or?
That is the portion of the 911 coordination board that was for staffing. And that's up on that separate line. If you recall that we set aside some dollars for staffing a couple years ago, and that they were gonna reimburse us for the first 2 years of staffing. But we have to get to those numbers, and because we had such turnover in '22, we're just getting to that point.
So we're probably not gonna realize that,
Probably not this fall, but
okay? And then, health insurance, you're not through the city or counties.
we're
plan.
independent.
Okay.
And our
okay.
health insurance premiums are very low. We didn't see an increase at all from the prior year. Of course, we didn't expect that, so you're gonna see a large savings in insurance. We fared very well.
Congratulations on that. Not everybody can say that. Okay. So that's just basically less expense to you. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
No, I don't think so. Any questions over here? Okay. All right,
If I could, Mayor, so
Yeah.
I want to go back to that grants. I mean, what would it take to hit that? How, I mean, you make it sound like it's just not going to happen.
I think it will happen, but
Okay.
we, as was reported earlier, I'll let Graham handle that one.
Doesn't seem appropriate for her to have to deal with. So the way that works is when you approve those extra 4, that would have been above our authorized staffing, it's actually 3 for this year and 4 for next year. We have to get there. We have to actually get to that full staffing, which we haven't been to in, collectively, brains can't remember, within 5 years or longer. So the goal, we can only bring on roughly 4 at a time. When we're running through our classes, we don't have capacity like PD and fire to do 20. So if we bring on, which we intend to do this next class coming up in September, we're at our authorized historical staffing. That then, if we can continue to maintain those folks, allows us to go get those extra 4, most likely in 2024, and then those are when those grant dollars will come back to us. It's really all of these same things are just symptoms of the same problem. If we can't stave off the retention, also do intake, also figure out how to get them through effective training and effective floor life, frankly, we just can never even get there. So that's, when I talked about a 91% in February, that's actually the hiring class where we would be looking to get into those numbers.
Okay.
So, but again, we have to be able to maintain, and that really does speak to what I believe I see on the floor consistently is this, welcoming attitude. We need you. You're helping us. People are really committed to making sure these folks are successful. We know when we have to cut the cord if necessary, but I really see them, everybody working together to get there. But that would explain that grant.
Okay,
Fair?
thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Other questions then on the financials as presented through the end of July? All right, we usually take a motion to adopt them as presented, don't we? Yeah. All right, so I'd accept that motion.
So move.
Second Cole.
Motion by Sale and seconded by Cole. Any discussion there? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, that motion passes 4-0. Item 9 is a budget amendment for this year that we have to consider.
All right, thank you. So, we've been talking about the FF&E. That was something we didn't budget because, it was a bit of a moving target as to, when we were gonna be making those purchases. So the decision was to budget a normal calendar year, fiscal year budget, and then once we'd identified the needs and when expenses were gonna flow, we'd come in with a budget amendment. So that's what we're here to do today. So I'm, in reviewing our budget, what we've come up with and what we're requesting is that we increase operating expenditures for 2023 by $321,000 and capital outlay by $2.5 million. And that will be funded through the increased revenue in the amount of $2,621,000 and a reduction in personnel expenditures of $200,000.
Okay. Questions on that amendment? All right, take a motion then to approve that amendment as presented.
I'll make that motion.
All right, motion by Sale, seconded by Cole. Discussion on that? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? All right, that amendment's gonna pass 4-0. We got any other new business before we go into exec sesh? All right, seeing none, then I'd like to entertain a motion to enter an exec session for the purposes of, and as authorized by SDCL 1-25-2, 1, 3, and 4.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion by Karski and seconded by Sale. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're going to exec sesh.
Next door.
Should we go next door for that? That's how we'll do that? Okay. And